Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for having us. Michael Casey, chairman of the Decentralized AI Society. Tomicah and I have done a few of these together, so it is getting the band back
One
together.
or two.
One or two over the years, and we've landed back in the same place here. I run this thing called the Decentralized AI Society, and we are an association, a not-for-profit, that's bringing together all the various builders of what we see to be the technology stack that's going to be needed if we're going to have an AI economy that is built upon all the right privacy-preserving, open, self-sovereign, decentralized principles that we think, and hopefully all you do as well, the world needs, rather than this rather scary centralized AI vision. And Tomicah, the big word of the moment in our world is the agentic economy. We're always talking about agents. And I think it's exciting. We can imagine this world where these independent agents are working together, doing whatever it is that we want done for us by them. But I'm often thinking about what sort of an agent do I want? Do I want Agent Smith from The Matrix? Or do I want Agent Gillian, who is my literary agent? I've been working with her for 20 years, and she represents me on every level. I know that I can trust her. And so it seems to me the best definition for agent in this context is probably that lawyers use. You are a fiduciary, and you have 100% responsibility to represent that person. Is that a good analogy? And how do we bring that into the reality of what this technical structure looks like?
Well, I think that is one of the key questions facing humanity right now. And at Project Liberty, we build technology that gives people control over their digital lives. That's been important through the last iteration of the internet. It has never been more important than in the world in which we are about to find ourselves, which is going to be an AI-powered world. And to think about this, I look back at past paradigms. One that's interesting to me is the world of sports. Our founder at Project Liberty, Frank McCourt, has owned and owns a bunch of sports teams. And if you look back to professional baseball in the 1960s, every player who played at that time was effectively owned by the league. The league had total control over them. At the end of the season, if you couldn't come to terms on a new contract, they would force you to play the next year for the same team. And that was just the way it was, and everybody was comfortable with that. And finally, in 1969, there was a player named Curt Flood who said, you know what? We're not going to do this anymore. He took a stand. He sat out a year. He filed suit, took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And ultimately, there was a decision that in the United States, and indeed in most countries, people should be able to own themselves. We should have control over ourselves. And that led to a world in which the players got agents, to your comment a moment ago, and those agents worked for the players in a world of free agency. When it comes to AI, we are at risk right now of ending up in a world where we're all going to have lots of agents working for us, but those agents are going to work for the league, or they're going to work for the team. They're not going to be working for us. And so one of the key solutions that needs to exist in the world, and Project Liberty is advancing this effort through an infrastructure layer called frequency, is giving people control over their own information and creating the interoperability and the data portability needed to use that information seamlessly across many different platforms. You solve for that, we're going to end up in a world where we're all going to have AI agents like Jillian, who's going to represent you effectively in the work that you do.
So, I mean, look, I think one way to think about this is the world of trading, right? Obviously, in our community, it's a big part of the crypto world. People are trading. And clearly, naturally, as the kind of first adopter type community that this is, people are starting to get agents trading on their behalf. We've had a look at the banana bot, which seems to be awesome. But, you know, how do I know, right, that my trades are not being front-run by somebody else, right?
Well, Banana Bot's a great example of that. That's an awesome example. Banana Bot is super, super cool. It can do really interesting things. But and again, I don't know the back end of Banana Bot, but if you are trading, if you have an agent that's going to be executing trades on your behalf, you want to be really sure that that agent is working for you. Because if that agent is working for somebody else, there are going to be problems.
The story of Wall Street is the story of centralized intermediating banks literally trading off their superior knowledge of what's going on, right? So that's, to me, a perfect example of this. So we're obviously going to get into the architecture that Project Liberty is supporting through frequency and DSNP. But before we do, I mean, there's also been a lot of policy initiatives at Project Liberty which are kind of putting some meat onto this concept of data ownership and the rights that are associated there. I was very pleased to hear that the Utah law was passed. I want to talk a little bit about that and the idea of portability of your data and that the book that I wrote with Frank, of course, bit of a shameless plug, guys, but I did write a book with Frank McCourt, the founder of Project Liberty, called Our Biggest Fight. Buy it in all your favorite bookstores. Nonetheless, did seem to have some role there in helping move things along. Tell us about that legislation, why it matters, and is there any prospect of it moving beyond the small but important state of Utah, which is
absolutely. So Project Liberty builds a lot of tech, frequency, and a single sign-on that we've developed, and a new foundational protocol called DSMP are great examples of that. But we also engage a lot on policy and movement work because we think that ultimately you need technical code and legal code coming together in a complementary fashion if you want to get the type of internet that all of us aspire to have and deserve, quite candidly. And what happened in Utah was really interesting. The governor there, Spencer Cox, read the book that you and Frank wrote together. He reached out to us and he said, we need a solution to give people back control over their information. What is it that we can do at the state level that will help advance that goal? And so over a series of months, we worked with the state Senate and the state legislature in the state of Utah to build out a groundbreaking new law that gives individuals the ability to have full portability for their information and interoperability using open protocols. That law is now passed. It is signed into law. Exciting news today. I can tell you New York is going to be introducing that same legislation. Vermont introduced that legislation a couple of days ago. And we have many, many other states lining up to be part of that new regulatory paradigm where people, not platforms, are in charge of the information they have, and they can move it seamlessly across whatever digital service they would like to utilize. That is one example of, I hope, how you're going to see policymakers and builders work together to create an internet that is going to give us a lot more confidence in the AI-powered world that we're entering.
It's super exciting. It just feels as if that is something of real momentous importance. It goes back to 1996, when one of the key elements of the Telecoms Act that led to the explosion, the growth of broadband, everything else, was this mandate that telephone numbers had to be migratable and interoperable, that you could take that number that you had and take it something that's, to my mind, it's far bigger because your data is so much more an important part of who you are. But let's move on now. Tell us a little bit about the architecture. Why frequency? Why DSMP? What role does it play? And obviously talk to the builder community here about, if they're building social apps, social network apps, creator apps, those sorts of things, how can they work with you guys and make the most of it from a privacy-preserving data ownership perspective?
Well, the crown jewel of our personal data on the internet is our social graph. And the social graph isn't just who we're connected to. It is the compendium of all of the interactions we have with digital platforms online. Today, that social graph is owned by a handful of entities. Meta predominantly, and Meta owns most people's social graphs, but there are little pieces that exist across other entities as well. They're all very fragmented, and they don't work together, and they don't talk to each other. We believe that there is a massive opportunity to fix that and to open up a new era of open internet collaboration as we do so. When Project Liberty was founded 5 years ago, we spent a lot of time with individuals who had been present at the creation of the internet. People like Dave Clark, who worked on TCP/IP, or Tim Berners-Lee, who worked on HTTP. And what they told us, which they're happy to tell anyone, is that we are asking the internet to do a lot of things today that it was never intended to do. And unless and until we provide at the infrastructure layer a new set of solutions that will align the capabilities of the internet with the demands that we are placing on it, we're always going to be in this weird space. So enter DSMP, a new protocol that's been developed by a lot of amazing rocket scientists and brilliant technologists who come to work with Project Liberty. And we are fortunate to have incredible collaboration with technologists at MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Georgetown, and other institutions that are helping us get this right. It provides a shared social graph that you can carry from platform to platform. So rather than having your entire digital life owned by Mark Zuckerberg, you own your digital life, and you can leverage it and move it wherever you want to leverage it and move it. We have a single sign-on that makes that process totally seamless for platforms that are leveraging this infrastructure, and already millions of people using this on a daily basis to take back control of their digital lives.
It's truly, I think, a remarkable flipping of the switch on how we imagine our relationship with apps, right? Like Frank often says, let's get to a world where they are signing on our terms of service, not the other way around. And what I also like about the whole mission here, it's not to say that like all the incredible energy and development that's happening in the crypto space isn't incredibly valuable, but there's this idea, like the TCP/IP analogy, that is valuable because it's this like public commons idea that we need to actually, at that layer of the internet, bring in these protocols that are open to everybody to use and figure out how to integrate that with the rest of the system.
Well, and just quickly on that, TCP/IP was the first protocol to connect devices. HTTP was the first protocol to really connect data. We need a protocol that's going to connect people and allow us to use all of the incredible decentralized services that people are building on Solana and elsewhere. We think there's a real opportunity for DSMP to help solve.
I mean, I keep saying to people, like, as we barrel, like headlong into the AI age, we need to give human beings a seat at the bargaining table with the machines, right? Give them the architecture, the structure, the ownership, the rights to be able to participate. And I think, in my view, we could then relive these explosive moments of innovation and growth that we've seen through history when you transfer property rights to other individuals. We've got 1 minute left, but I would be remiss not to throw at you the TikTok question, because I don't know if you guys know, but of course, Project Liberty was behind a bid for TikTok. It's still an open bid, really. How's it going?
So we've been incredibly fortunate. The people's bid for TikTok, which is what we call our effort to acquire the US assets of the platform, has attracted massive, massive support. If the Chinese decide to move forward with a transaction, and if the law that mandates that transaction is followed, we've got a really good shot of ending up with the US assets of TikTok. Those are two unknown questions right now, but assuming we get there on those, we're in a really strong position. And the exciting thing about TikTok is that it's 170 million users who would come into this new ecosystem, who would have control over their information, who would pivot from an attention economy, which is how we power the internet right now, to an intention economy, where we can specify the types of products, experiences, goods, and services with which we'd like to interact. But we have so many other large platforms now that are coming onto the platform and frequency that TikTok is great, but it's no longer a need to have, it's a nice to have.
Nice to have, TikTok, I love that. All right, we will leave it at that. A round of applause for Tomicah Tillemann, please.
Thank you.